You know what drives me a little nuts? Beautifully cut die cuts that just sit there looking flat and lifeless. If you've ever pulled a die cut from your stash and thought, nah, this one's for you. Today, I'm taking plain white paper and giving it a watercolor glow up, using pencils no less. And if I can do it, you definitely can. Hi, it's time once again for coffee, crafting, and cats with the Ginger Cat Lady. I'm Pam, and Harley is, well, probably inspecting my paint water. Today's project is a Finish It Friday. I'm finally tackling a stack of die cut flowers that I cut way back in March. They were plain, like so very plain. They needed something, and I knew exactly what that was. Distress watercolor pencils. This was my first real try using watercolor pencils, so you'll get to see what worked, what didn't work, and how I gave these flat die cuts a little color therapy. Spoiler alert, the difference is kind of amazing. And just so you know, I'm still very new to watercolor pencils, so if you want expert tips, I've linked a few great tutorials down below just in case you want a little more information. Let's talk about the supplies I'll be using for this project. These are my Tim Holtz Distress watercolor pencils. I picked these specifically for their blendability and how well they coordinate with the rest of the Distress line. There are 6 sets of 12 pencils, each with a good mix of colors. I've arranged mine in rainbow order to make it easier to grab what I need while I'm crafting. We'll also be using a Waterbrush, also known as a Waterbrush pen. These have a refillable barrel that you squeeze to control the water flow, and they come in different brush tip sizes. Finally, I have my white die cut flowers that I cut on my Sizzix Big Shot. I used matte photo paper for this batch. The glossy side didn't blend well, but the matte side worked much better and gave the pencils something to grip. Let's talk about how I tackled these die cuts. I picked up the Tim Holtz Distress watercolor pencils with this kind of project in mind. I love using dies, but I'm just not a fan of that flat, solid cardstock look for florals. I chose the Distress line because it coordinates beautifully with the rest of the Distress family, like the inks and the paints and everything else. So investing in a full set meant I could use them across lots of different projects. They're pigmented, blendable, and really easy to control. And since I'm still really new to watercolor pencils, this felt like a perfect, no pressure place to start. I tried 3 different techniques to add color to the flowers. First, I colored directly onto the die cut and then blended it with a water brush. This gave me a soft, subtle watercolor look, perfect for vintage or muted styles. I started with the lighter colors and then layered darker ones, focusing more color toward the center of the flower and pulling it out towards the end. You don't have to color perfectly, just get a little pigment down and then activate it with water. A gentle squeeze of the brush gives you just enough moisture to pull the color out. I used mustard seed for the petals and ripe persimmon in the centers. For the second technique, I used the water brush to pull the pigment directly from the pencil tip and then applied that to the die cut. This gave me the most vibrant color payoff, rich tones with deeper saturation. For this die cut, I used Rustic Wilderness. And I even tested both techniques on the leaves. One part using direct-to-paper blending and the other using pigment pulled with the brush. Which way you choose to use the watercolors on your die cuts really depends on the effect you want. Whether you want a soft and faded look with the pencil to paper or a more bold and bright look pulling the pigment with the brush. For the final technique, I tried the ink smoosh method, but this time, instead of using the watercolor pencils, I grabbed my distress ink pads. I smooshed the ink pad directly onto a piece of acetate, added a bit of water, and then used my Waterbrush to pick up the color and paint it onto the die cut. The results here fell somewhere in the middle, more fluid and blended than direct pencil coloring, but I didn't feel it was quite as bold as when I used the pigment straight from the pencil tip. I definitely had some moments where colors turned muddy or completely disappeared. But honestly, that's part of the learning process. A lot of those oops moments ended up being my favorites. One thing that made a big difference, the paper. In this video, I used a matte white photo paper. The glossy side was nearly impossible to blend on, but the matte side worked okay. This is one where I tried to blend on the glossy side. Didn't work so well. So I tried again on the other side. More color stuck, but it's eh. These are the ones I did in the video. And I made them on the flat side of the paper. And they worked. They're pretty. They worked. But since then, I've switched to actual watercolor paper, and let me tell you, the colors are way prettier and the blending is so much easier. Total game changer. This is the watercolor paper. It's thicker. It does also have a glossy or a smooth side, and then another side that has some tooth. I use the side that has the tooth. It's a little bit easier to push it around on. And look at the difference in the vibrancy of the colors. And you can see where it looks more watercolor. You can see the blending and the layering in the flowers. Definitely my more favorite way to watercolor paint. In the end, I had a stack of colorful florals ready for clusters, tags, and journal pages, all from die cuts that had been sitting around waiting for their moment to shine. So that's it. My very first adventure with watercolor pencils. I'm definitely still learning, but it was a lot of fun. And I love how these flowers turned out. If you've got a pile of unfinished die cuts just waiting for their moment, I highly recommend giving this a try. You don't need fancy tools, just a little color and a bit of water. Also, I just wanted to take a second to say thank you. We hit 300 subscribers this week, and I'm seriously so grateful to have you here. Whether you're silently crafting along or leaving comments that make me laugh snort coffee, you've made this journey so much brighter. And if you had fun crafting along with me today, don't forget to come back on Monday. I'll be sharing a quick project using Avery label stickers to make DIY ephemera. It's easy, customizable, and a great way to use up some stash. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, share it with your crafty friends, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you've got a favorite tip for using watercolor pencils, let me know in the comments. I am all ears. And as always, may your scraps be endless and your glue never dry. See you in the next one. Bye.